Okay, so I've got the windows set up roughly in the ground floor plan, and I've actually copied them to the other levels now in the 3D view. So probably now we're at a good point where we can adjust these walls and refine them to match more closely what we can see there in that drawing that we've inserted. And so I'm going to start by matching the colour and making it have a black fill instead of that grey fill that you can see there. Really simple. When you select a wall, you can then go to Edit Type, and without going any further, you'll see the coarse scale fill pattern and the coarse scale fill colour. So you can see there it's on solid fill, and then I'm going to change the colour to black using RGB. And I always love this because it gives me a chance to give my little spiel on colour. Have I given it to you yet? No. Good. What are the primary colours? Red, yellow, blue. Yeah, I knew you'd say that. Yeah. They're not. I know that's what you're taught. I was taught the same in art by people who don't know physics. So that's true. In all art courses you will be taught red, yellow, blue because they're still operating the way people did in the 19th century. In fact, this was worked out even in the 19th century, but not many people knew it. Those primary colours are actually what you have working with pigment or taking light away, the same as you do on a printer. And if you know the primary colours on a printer, what are they? Cyan, magenta and yellow. That's actually a more accurate version of that colour model. So red, yellow, blue is actually just a less accurate version of those primary colours that you have with, again, printers, cyan, magenta and yellow. And so when you're working with light, it's always red, green and blue. So with any computer program that works with graphics, you set the colours, or the primary colours will always be red, green and blue. And it's not because of what some guy at Dulux told me many years ago when I was trying to get the accurate colour values off them. He was adamant that no, this is all just tricks with computers. It's a trick. The real colours, the real primaries are, what we were taught 100 years ago, and they actually work with, I think he was trying to tell me 15 primaries or some nonsense. But if you get distracted by those people who don't know the way the world really is and the physics, you can know for sure they're wrong if you know why these really are the primaries. Is it a trick with computers or something else? Why do you think red, green and blue are the primaries? There's a fundamental reason, and that will convince you if you're not sure that what I'm saying is right. Think about it. Why do we have primary colours in the first place? What do we see with? Your eyes. Your eyes have red, green and blue receptors. Yeah. You've got 3 colour receptors, basically, in the, not the outer ones, but the inner ones, the cones, that's right. The rods are different. Yeah, the rods, yeah. So the cones are basically, evolved to receive red, green and blue. Yeah, I won't get into the science of it, it's a bit more complex than that, but that's essentially the reason. Yeah, I know, but even then, it's people who are coming from an art background usually, and they will still focus on red, yellow, blue, which I know confuses people because, yeah. And if you've done painting, I've done painting for a long time, and I had a lot of art teachers telling me that we couldn't make the colours we wanted to because we just weren't good enough. And they're wrong. There are many colours you can't make using red, yellow, blue. But with red, green and blue, you can make any colour, virtually. Cyan, magenta, yellow, you're going to have gamut issues, but essentially you can make virtually any colour. So I always like to give that little talk because with a computer program, again, you've got to get used to working with red, green and blue, and it's not a limitation, it's actually going to open up the possibilities of the colours you can use and make it possible to use lots of colours that you maybe couldn't before. So here, very simple, we want to make black. Simple way is to drag the slider there all the way down to the bottom, and with adding light, in other words working with red, green and blue, that's going to be 0, 0, 0. If you have full colour, full red, green and blue, that's white. Opposite to working with pigment. If you're working with pigment, it's the other way around.
So this was Pantone.
Yes, yeah, we can go to Pantone. That's just another way of specifying colour. Yeah, of course, yeah. So I'll give you that talk again with a bit more detail when we look at materials, but I always like to get people thinking about that whenever we talk about colour. So clicking OK, you'll see that all of those walls on the outside that are the same type, remember types, they all change because these were all generic 500mm. If I go to choose, or if you even look at one of those interior walls, which is of course a different type, they're generic 100mm, they're still grey. So we've got to go to edit type for those, and again, a bit more quickly this time, change the colour, black. That easy. And they all change. That's why, if you remember, I recommended using just the one wall thickness for the interior walls, and then we can adjust them afterwards to have different thicknesses. So that's the first step. Sorry? Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, so just saving time. And really, Revit is a management tool more than anything else. So if you think about the way you're managing large groups of objects, it can make things, much more efficient. Yeah. So going to the ground floor plan without the image, we can see those walls a little bit more clearly.
So this change, this fill of color will happen on every level?
Yes, that's a good point. Absolutely, yep. So if I go to level 1, where I've drawn a couple of walls as well, the wall there is the same type of wall, so yeah, it has changed as well. Yep. So now we need to go a bit further, and this is really what I was talking about before, when we're looking at refining the walls to get those different thicknesses. So there's a bit more involved. Firstly, if you remember that option there that I've set to coarse, I'm going to now set it back to fine so that I can see through that black fill. Also, it's just not there anymore. And I haven't gotten rid of it. It's still there in the wall, but I haven't. I've turned it off in that view. So then we've got the wall here. Probably is a good starting point, where you can see that it's actually set back from that edge. So using the measure tool, I can see and check that distance roughly. So it looks close enough to 200mm, I'm going to say. And then if I measure on the other side, it's less than that, it's 150. So that means we need a different thickness of wall there, and we also need to move the wall, but keep it at the same angle. So a good option there is to use something like offset, and then turn the copy option off. So I'm not sure if you've used that offset tool very much. I know we looked at it a little bit.
We have it on SketchUp, but it's kind of different, I think.
Yeah.
SketchUp is different. SketchUp is basically to draw another thing within another thing.
Yeah, parallel copies. I'll show you without copy turned off. I'll leave it turned on, just to show you how it works normally. So with the offset tool, you give a distance. So there it's on 1,000, so a metre, and I've left copy turned on. And so then basically the offset tool is to create parallel copies. And it's going to do that in any program. Most programs have a tool like this. So if I pick a wall, I can do a copy to the right, in this case because it's vertical, or to the left, really easily. So if you think about why that's really useful when you're working on buildings, they usually are rectilinear, and you'll have a lot of parallel lines or parallel walls, parallel copies of things. So the offset tool is an extremely useful tool for creating copies. Don't worry about those errors. So that's often what you'll use it for. But you can also use it to move things. Again, if I click offset, simply by turning the copy option off, then again you have the distance there, so I'm going to change it this time to 200. And then I can pick this wall and make sure that the line's going below. And I know it's a little bit unclear there because it's a very thick wall, but I know that is the right way. See how that dashed line there is going up above, but I'm going to move it down so that it's further down. That should be to the right side. There we are. So I've moved that whole wall down 200mm, and this one is most likely the same. I'm just going to take a punt. but it should be right. Well, a little bit too far, but I'm happy with that actually. It's fine. Again, this is not for construction, so we don't need to be that precise. And so then we've got that extra 50 mil. So yeah, so we need to make a new wall type. So again, measuring there, this wall is 50 mil, well not, it's narrower than it should be. So it needs to become 50 mil wider. So I'll select that wall. So the same as you would have to make this wall in the first place, that 500 mil wall. Edit type, duplicate, give your new name. I'm going to call it generic 450 mil wall. And then, again, just like before, click edit next to structure and change the thickness there. Now, can you see what's happened? Oh, so I've gone the wrong way, haven't I? So 550, so that's fine. So I'm thinking of narrower, don't know why. So 550 is what it should have been. Easy to fix. Now, I've deliberately done something wrong there. You can see it's gone, it's 50 mil wider, but it's gone to the inside and not the outside. Now, we can go and fix that by using offset again and simply making it 50 mil. And move it up. That works, and this one as well probably just needs to move 50 mil to the outside. That thickness has to change as well, but I'll just move it for now so that the back, and it's going the wrong way, so we'll go this way. There we are. That's it. So I've got the back now where I want it to be. But this wall needs to become thicker still. But also, I want to keep the back edge there where it is, and this time have the wall move out as it becomes thicker. So I'll check that measurement. So from the outside there to where it should be is, yeah, about 150. So it needs to become another 150 more thicker. So, so you all can guess, I'm going to use edit type to make a new wall type that's another 150 mil. So it'll be 650. But before I do that, I'm going to change the location line. So if you're thinking about how that works when you draw the walls, you might remember you drew the wall on the outside. And you can always see that location line by looking where the grips are. So you can see those two grips there, we can see on the outside of the wall. I'll select another wall just so you can see that on a longer wall. So again, we've got the grips there on the outside edge. So I'll select that diagonal wall again and change the location line to finish face interior. So now can you see the grips are on the inside edge? So the wall...
Sorry, it's like the interior wall is pushing upward.
Exactly, that's right. That's now our set out point. So that will stay in place. That location line locates the wall. And like you're saying, we'll measure out from there. So edit type, just like before, duplicate. And this now will be... So I can't use delete, so I've got to just some different buttons. Oh, just, well, there's no fill there. The fill's turned off. We can't see the fill because we've got to trace the plan. Yeah, yeah. If you're tracing the plan, you just have to, yeah, you have to work that way. So, so here again, I'll edit that and change the thickness to 650. And okay. So actually, one little tip there though. You'll see that I don't usually use this thin lines option. I know a lot of people, if you're coming from AutoCAD, you'll get into the habit of just using that all the time. But you'll see I don't like using it very much because it'll help you a lot if you can see the line thickness in Revit. And then at least when you're working in a view like this, you've got a chance of seeing the walls. I know on the projector it's hard, but on your screens, you should be able to see the heavy lines there, even though it's over black. So there you can see. Now it's taken the wall thickness out. Right, so looking at this wall again, I can use the same process. So by, again, checking that measurement, it's no problem to just check that as you go. So this one is 100 mil, let's say, to the right. So just repeating the process, using offset to begin with. I want to use the distance there of 100. Select my wall. making sure it goes the right way. And then this one looks like 50 mil less. Check the measurement, so from here to the wall, well, actually maybe it's 100. No, it's not quite. It's just, I'm going to say 50, nice to round it off. So again, selecting that wall, before I change the type, I'm going to change the location line to finish face interior, and then looking through my list of sizes, I don't have a 450 wall. So, yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, it shouldn't. It won't do that unless they're the same type. So if you don't duplicate, then they will change. But if you do duplicate, yeah, yeah, no, no. Yeah. So now again, I'll go to make a new wall type just like before with edit type. So like you're saying, I want to change the width of this wall, but I need to duplicate it first, or the others will change. Yeah. Yeah, so it's all about that idea of types. And so Revit's a management tool which allows you to have these different wall sizes, and you shouldn't need to make them again. In a lot of other programs you would have to work that way. You'd have to select each wall that you wanted to change and manually change it to 450 for every wall that had to be that size. But with Revit, you've got to do that little bit of extra work at the beginning to set up the types. But then when you need another wall of that size, and we'll have a lot of them, so let's have a look over here. Okay, so I'm sure there'll be a wall here that will be 450. Let's just check, maybe this one. Yep, that's pretty sure, well, maybe 500. Maybe this one's 450. Well, that's 300. The types, yeah, I was just setting up the types, and it was, well, that's right, it's doing more detail. So, yeah, so there is a bit more, yep, more detail involved, more detailed process. But that's normal with drawing, and for interior design and architecture, all of your drawings will start out fairly simply, but then you do need to refine them in a more complex way. That's pretty typical.
So we have to do this for like exterior walls because of we're changing the higher.
That's right, well, I haven't even got to the piers yet. But take your time, and the more time you spend making this, I don't want to make it sound too detailed, but making it a good setup for you to work with. So if we come back here now and keep looking at that drawing, you can see that I've still got a fairly simple setup there. I don't have very many walls, but I'm not rushing ahead and just drawing in things, trying to get it all done quickly. I'm trying to manage it and set it up in an efficient way so that when we get to do the design, that's all going to work smoothly. Yeah. And often it is a matter of taking it slowly and making sure you're doing it in a sensible, thought out, planned way, rather than just rushing ahead manly and drawing, as much as you can and thinking that that's going to get you to finish it quickly, because it just won't. Revit is, again, primarily there for managing things, and that's what you're trying to set up here. So coming back now to the big wall that's a problem, you can see that we've got this part that is much thicker than the rest. I'll come back to this part on the other side in a moment, but this part here, obviously that wall that's going across there needs to become much thicker here. So what do you think we have to do before I can set up that new wall type?
We have to measure
Yeah, we can do that. But then, well, can we make this wall thicker? What's going to happen if I make the wall thicker? Yeah, before we even duplicate? Trim, or what's the other one?
offset? Oh,
Split it. We've got to break it up into pieces. So we can change just one part of it to have a different thickness rather than the whole thing. So split element, if you're not already using that tool, that's a really important one. And then I'll just quickly go over some of those. So we've looked at the offset tool. Hopefully you're getting used to that. Split, of course, we're going to do now, and then trim to corner. Hopefully you've been using that one too. So with split element, you just need to pick your wall at a point where you want it to be broken. Where you want it to break. So there you can see I've moved the cursor, and again it's harder to see on the projector than on your screens, hopefully you can see it there. So I've moved the cursor so my blade essentially is in line with the wall edge that's projecting down below vertically. No, that's fine. That's fine. We're gonna have piers for that. That's fine. Okay, so then over here, same thing. I'm going to just choose the point where I want that wall to be broken. So to get off the split tool, you can press escape twice or right click and choose cancel twice. And just out of interest, do you know why you need to do this twice? So yeah, it's good to see, again, go a bit further with these tools. So the first time you cancel, it cancels the current operation. So let's say we're drawing. So we're drawing a wall. The first time you cancel, it cancels that drawing operation. The second time you cancel, it cancels out of the tool completely. So that's why. So then with this wall now, you can see that it's broken at those 2 points, there and there. So firstly, we've got to, well, there's a bit of a trick here. If you try to offset that down, well, I'll show you what will happen. Why you shouldn't be doing it. It's always good to know why. Say I want to offset it down 500. Can you see what it's done? That's not good. It's brought the whole wall down. The other two on the other side have come down as well. It's also that thing Revit does, it joins things together. And it's a good thing. Usually that's going to help you, but sometimes it gets in the way. So we've got to work around that option. So a better way of doing it is to leave it on this one on finished face exterior and then work inwards. So I'm not going to try to offset that to bring it down. I'm just going to measure what the width should be. From here, we're just ignoring that part that sticks out for now. And yeah, so it's about 1,000, maybe 1,100, but yeah, I'll do it 1,100. So again, with that wall selected, I'm not going to change the location line with this one just because of that issue with joining. So I'll go to Edit Type, Duplicate, and make this 1,100. And change the thickness. Okay, so you can see there it's come out. And so this one is to give a different thickness. So always, if you're making a new wall size, you need to duplicate. And you can't just randomly change the size of things on the fly. You need to manage your types. You need to make a new wall type for each different size. I know it seems like extra work at first, but remember, the whole point of these programs is you're doing repeated elements. You'll always be using that wall repeatedly. So it does save you time in the long run. Okay, so then going a little bit further, we've got, again, a bit of an issue here because the, remember the boundary that's shown there is a bit different to what we're drawing. So we just have to account for that and remember that the piers should still go on the top or on the outside, and that wall there is actually where it should be. So I'll just do a couple of piers to show you the basic process there. The piers are really easy. I've checked that distance, I've forgotten what it was. So from there it's 150. Just check that over here. Should be the same. I'm sure it is, but I'll make sure. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to say, and maybe you want to remember this measurement because, again, you probably want to all make it the same. 150, yep. So again, with the wall tool, I don't have a 150 generic wall, so I'll go and make one. And if you don't like putting generic into your names, you don't have to. I'm just leaving it there because that's what it had before. So generic essentially just means undefined anyway. So here I'll make a new generic 150mm wall. And then here I'm going to set the location line to finish face interior before I draw the wall. and I'm going to set the height to parapet, and then simply trace over where the piers are. Now this one's going to be cut off, so I'll actually take that all the way across to there. So remember, we're going to cut the openings through the walls. So it's the same idea as when you're drawing over doors and other things. Just ignore the openings, doors and windows. Draw over them. And so here again, I can trace the pier roughly. And that's fine. Don't know what's happening there. I think that isn't showing everything that's there, but maybe we can just take that one to the end for now. So remember, this is just a working view for tracing off the plan, but you can always go back to the original ground floor plan and see the correct graphics. Now, I know it looks all right, but I'm fussy, and if we go to fine, you'll see that there is still an issue there, which is not a huge problem, but it's a good chance to look at the join tool. So you've all seen the option that comes up sometimes. It'll ask you, would you like to join geometry and cut overlapping volumes out of whatever objects? That's a great option. What it's doing for you is basically joining as you would with this join tool. Pretty much, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So you can always go to that manually on the Modify tab, and then you've got Join. So I'm going to choose the pier, and then the main wall, and they read as one thing. No, it's just a graphical thing, and they're still separate walls, which is good actually. So there you can see I've joined this wall to the one on the right, but I still need to join it again to that main really thick wall. So you can join any time, but it's a good thing to try. And I'll have to fix the end up, that's right. Oh yes, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so really that was just a chance for me to go over a lot of the editing tools. Probably a lot of them you've already used. I'm sure you've all used Split before, Trim, Offset. Hopefully mostly use that. And that way you can refine the walls and get it closer to the image you've inserted. Then there is the alcove. And that's the final thing. And we might have to go over this a couple of times, but I'll just start you off. So we've got the, again, the opening there with this triangular shape, I suppose, or trapezoid. So that's something you can't do with the normal wall tool. And so things that you can't do with the normal tools often need to be done with this option. It's one of the most important tools in Revit. So we're going to spend a lot of time on this. I'm just starting off on it. So again, under Component, clicking on the down arrow there, Model in Place. That's the way we always start families, start people off on families and the modelling tools. So again, once you go to there, choose Model in Place. Yep, I'll save it. Then you get a list of categories. So the categories are fairly self-explanatory. These are all model categories. In other words, they're building elements. Here I'm trying to make a hole in the wall, so the category is walls. Then it's going to ask you for a name, and the name is purely for your use. So it's unlikely anyone else will see this. It's purely to help you. That's right. Wall void is probably a good reminder of what it is.
Can you do that again for me?
Yep, sure. So I'll cancel it and repeat it. So again, click on the down arrow under Component, Model in Place, and then set the category to walls. click OK, and try to give it a meaningful name. So I'm putting my wall void. That'll do. Or maybe, let's make it even clearer, wall entry void.
That's going to be a door, right?
Oh, we'll add the door as well afterwards. That'll be next. Yep.
That's the
Yep.
door here, but there's a whole bunch
Yeah,
of things.
that's right. Yeah, that's it. Yep. Okay, so I'll click OK, and then you can see the modelling tools. Now, like I said, don't worry if you don't get this the first time. We're going to spend a lot of time on it. So, remember I was talking about extrusions? So you've got the extrusion tool to the left, but if you go to void forms, you've got void extrusion. So notice how there you've got the same drawing tools as you've had for floors, walls, roofs, all of those things you can draw in Revit. You generally get the same options, but there's no pick walls. So instead of starting with pick walls, it starts with line, and that's exactly what we want. And I'm simply going to trace over those lines. Again, not trying to be too accurate there, doesn't really matter. And coming up there, it should be 45, but yep, there we go. Well, they've done it, you can tell, this is hand drawing. I'd say maybe it's AutoCAD, but it's not very accurate. So if you want to make it rounded off to 45, that should be fine. Or trace it, make it 47 or 48, that's fine, up to you. So I've got my basic trapezoid shape, but of course I have to close it, so trim to corner. There we are.
So you use the trim, not the work?
Yeah, trim to corner.
Trim.
Yep. If you need to join the corner lines, yep. So that's the shape I want in plan. What I might do now is switch to a 3D view so you can get a better idea where this is. So that is sitting on the ground. Yep, that's fine. It's good to have it sticking out from the building because this is going to cut a hole. So it's actually helpful to have that void bigger than it needs to be so that we make sure it goes right through the wall. So, how high is the entry, do you think? Probably, yeah, that's a good standard height. That's quite common for, well, these days they'd be low ceilings, but that's the BCA minimum, yep. But in the section, I thought you might be able to get an idea. They haven't given you the elevations this year. That's slow. Okay, so, well, we've got the elevations, but we should stick with these drawings. That gives you an idea, but let's, okay, if you can't work it out from the drawings, what's the other way? Yeah? So just think about your research. Yeah, or even better, you're so lucky these days, you've got Street View. I don't know how I ever worked without it, but I did for 10 years, or 15 years. Yeah, okay, so where is it? It's around here somewhere. You should all know. It's down here, isn't it, further? Can't believe it doesn't track me. It should know I'm looking for Alex Zones, because I've done it 1,000 times. That's up here, isn't it? Somewhere around there. Yep, there it is, that's it. Yeah, yeah, there it is. Okay, so if you're trying to work out details, yeah, unfortunately he doesn't want to drop on the right place, but that's the building. Okay, so if you're unsure of any details, don't forget you've got that great resource and you can go and look at it directly, and I know... Yeah, it is. Yeah. If we can get across there we are. So, yeah, so you can see there, that's right, the window is a good thing to line it up with. That's what I was looking for. So, okay, so do we know the window height? I don't remember. Yep. You could, absolutely, good idea. Yep. So in the, well, I was going to say south, but actually the way I've drawn this, it will be north. And so let's have a look at the measuring tool when we're in this view. Yeah, unfortunately, it's a bit annoying. It won't let us measure until we've finished it. That's right. So I'm just going to guess the height for now and we'll adjust it. So, yeah, good idea. Tick to finish. Yep, I think Carly's right. So that's it. 3250. Okay, so okay. So now I did that quickly, just so it's clear. If you select, you need to select the void. If you finished it, and then you'll see the depth will come up here on the options bar. But it's usually safer to look in properties where you'll see the extrusion end. I'll make that 3250. Okay, and so then we've got, well, there's some sort of threshold or step or something there, which I think is raised anyway, so I'm going to leave it starting at the ground floor. It'll stick out the bottom, that's good. And, or the floor actually is going to stick out, that's fine. So again, I'm going to keep changing to 3D view so you can see it there. So notice finally that it's still orange and it's not cutting anything yet. Yeah, well, I'll do that just so you can see what happens. If I go to finish model, it's going to tell me, well, I've just said, the void's not cutting anything, so it's not going to let me finish. That's okay. So I've got two options there. I can delete the element. I don't want to do that. I'll just spend all the time drawing it. So instead I'm going to cancel, which will give me a chance to go back and fix it. Yeah, not right idea, but it's a different tool. So you have a cut tool just for this, for cutting voids, basically. So we cut, choose the void and the wall, or the wall and the void, doesn't matter which order. So remember I had two walls there. That's fine. So I can choose the void again. Now notice how this time I've got to move the cursor around a bit more to get the void, but I'll get it. And then choose the other wall. So I chose the same wall again. Just 1 second, that's a bit confusing. Okay, so we'll, I can do it here, but I'll do it in plan so it's not so confusing. So we've got the wall on the outside that's effectively up here, and then there's the wall on the inside that's behind it. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So they're still separate walls, that's right. So in plan, it's a bit easier to see. So if I go to cut, notice how to get the void, you go to the edge that it creates. So the void created this diagonal line, and so I can go there now to select the void, and then I can select this wall and be sure I'm getting the right one. There we are. So now back into the 3D view, it's cut through. And then I can finally finish the model, and it'll tell me in place family is not cutting host. That's fine. It's a warning. So again, just watch out for that. Sometimes you'll see this and be used to having this option of either cancelling or just accepting the problem. But if you can click OK, again, it's just information. It's not something you need to act on. Okay, so that's done, and now we can put in a door just to finish that off and see what happens. So I'm going to use the door tool, and I think just because that's taken a little while, I'll choose the wall there, just so that you can see the door goes into the inside. So that works. And just to maybe give you some pointers there, though, don't take it to the outside. That'll cause some problems. Yeah. Well, if it doesn't, you can flip it. But the issue is if you want a door that's opening out, then you've got to set it up a bit differently. But if it's opening inwards, and I think this one would be. Oh, it opened out, did it? That'd be weird. Oh, it does, right, okay. Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll just see. I think, let's have a look at the photo, because I think that's... No. I think it is opening out, yeah. Well, let's say it opens in, because it's... I don't know, why would you want an outward opening door there? Maybe that's the way it is. Yeah, maybe. Anyhow, so look, I'll show you. If you do want to have an outward opening door, you can do it, but it's just a few more steps, which we'll have to look at later. But for now, as long as you can get a door in, that's fine. And then again, going to the 3D view, we can see the door there. Now, actually, this is the door, yeah, that I don't normally use. It's the American one, where they leave the architraves on, and they don't have door jambs. It's just the way they show doors. It's different. So, well, let's have a look at how you can easily get a new one. So if I select the door, edit type, and then to change it from the library, you just go to load. Yep. And then now we'll go to, I'll go to the library on the P drive. So, and I can show you how to do that shortcut. Go to design. Here's the Revit library that we can use for all sorts of things. To make a shortcut, just drag it over to that grey bar on the left. So I go to doors, and that concept door works really well. So if I can find it, this one here, concept external single. There we go. So yeah, so that's great if you can get that far. We'll put the fan light in afterwards, but otherwise, you can see already just having those piers and a bit more definition in the walls or articulation, then that's going to make the building look more like it really does. So let me know if you've got any issues, but yep, we're good.